go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock. And Gary, do you mind leading us in prayer?
So pause with me and bow your heads, please. Father God, we just ask that you be with us today. Read what is on our hearts. Grant us wisdom, good judgment, compassion. Help us to make good decisions. Help us to remember that in all things we're serving you, Father. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
First item on the agenda is the visitor and citizen forum. Just rather than reading this as I do every month, I just ask, is there anybody here that'd like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? And so you're on the agenda though, Russell. So you're here to talk about the tennis center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have an item on that, so I'll get to it in a second. Thanks. Item 2A is approval of the minutes from December 21st and from the workshop on January 12th. Everybody's had a chance to review those. I entertain a motion.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor with the uplifted hand.
Aye.
Paul, you gonna vote? There you go. So unanimous on that. Item 3A is monthly financials for December 2015.
These days I'm gonna make a motion.
Good afternoon. Beginning on page 12 of your agenda, the Sales Tax Improvement Fund Operating Fund, the beginning cash was $3,808,629. We had income of $255,671 with expenditures of $100,740, leaving you an ending balance of $3,963,561. The following page, on page 13, is the detail, which shows your budget, your current period, your year-to-date, and your remaining budget balance. On page 14 is your year-to-date sales tax that you have received. Comparing it to what was budgeted, we're at a minus 1.16% based on your budget. On page 15 is your capital operating fund. You had an opening balance of $1,775,062. No income. Had expenditures of $153,590, leaving you an ending balance of $1,621,472. Page 16 gives you the detailed breakdown of your projects that are currently being worked on. And at the bottom of the page is the breakout on the River Trail and the Louise Hayes Park. Page 17 is your cash and investments. This is showing where your funds are located and the balances of those respective funds and the interest earned. On page 18 is a summary for a 5-year history of the 3 categories that y'all typically spend out of. And the following pages, the next 3 pages behind that, gives you the breakdown of the different categories, the projects that make up those totals. And then on page 22 is the budget worksheet from the budget workshop that we had. So I updated that based on y'all's instructions that day.
Just one quick question.
Yes.
Back on 16 on our
16?
capital improvement balances.
Okay.
River Trail's still showing 1.63. When do we anticipate more money coming out of that for the crossing, or has that already been paid for?
Out of which one?
The River Trail, we're showing a balance of 1.633.
Whatever is spent in January, anything that's going on, that'll be reflected on next month. That's like at your crossing there at Lowry and all of that. That'll be showing in January. This is as of December 31st.
So that bill, I guess that bill should be coming up forthcoming, or has that already been paid for?
The process of payout last week for $54,000, and that hasn't come out of this
Right.
Okay.
report yet.
This is just through the end of December.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know if we were anticipating another big hit on that, or
Right.
if it was just still piecemealing.
Ms. Yarborough, the city council declined that $500,000 expenditure on the I-10 at FM 783.
Oh, okay.
Do we need to remove
Yeah,
that?
I didn't change the budget for this current year. I just did the ones going forward.
Okay.
So we all need to take that off because that happened in January, so it'll be reflected on next month.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any others?
I think there's a point though on that I-10 evaluation, that was to revisit within 6 months to a year.
Right.
Can't hear you, Todd, I'm sorry.
That was deferred to come back for additional consideration within 6 months to a year.
Okay.
So should we leave it on here to remind ourselves, or?
Well, I think that would fall probably, if it's within 6 months, it's gonna fall on the edge of this fiscal year. The reality is, by the time you got through your public notice and all that, it's gonna fall to 17 at the earliest. So I think
Okay.
you could probably push that out to 17 if you want.
Okay.
Todd, I'm curious why that's being deferred. What's going on with that?
I think, well, that was a council discussion on that deferral, was really that it wasn't something that required immediate action. It was to have some additional conversations with TxDOT with regard to looking at a little bit more detail on the project in terms of phasing and timing of that project.
And I tried to represent EIC on city council and our position, and I was outvoted.
It also seemed like it was gonna be a time factor because by the time the TxDOT actually would use that information, it'd be old information. And so to do it so fast now and have it sit there and wait for them to use it, is that, did I understand the time
That-
factor being?
Well,
part
that
of the
was
reason?
one of the arguments from
Right.
city council, so. It's hard to represent city council here when I didn't agree with it.
Okay, item 3B is a projects update. Brian?
On page 25 is the monthly projects update. For the Callaway Campus Sports Facility, the parking lot is completed, striped, ready to go. The parking lighting has been put in, did that yesterday. Everything is just about completely finished. They're gonna probably power up the HVAC this week, acclimate the building before they put down the dance floor and the studio. And then they'll put the ceiling in there, the drop ceiling, and just finish up the fixtures. They were putting in the finishes today as far as the sinks and the cabinetry, and that's being all placed right now. So I've been saying every month that we'd be completed by the end of January, but we'll probably be the first week in February is what we're looking at right now.
That's great.
And for the Lowry Trail Park, we're still working on the crossing right there. We poured Friday, it was the last pour. We poured the closure on the upstream side with the curbing that closes out the skewed culverts. And now they're gonna work on this downstream side, getting that completed. We're working on the forms right now for that.
Is that something we can walk down and look at, or
Sure.
is? Okay, so
Absolutely.
it's
Wear
like
your
it's open to,
boots.
I mean, we're not gonna get
No.
shooed away or anything?
No.
so, Okay.
And if you let me know ahead of time, I can let them know that you'll be coming down there,
Okay.
because we do have pedestrians coming down once in a while. And I always tell the guys to make sure the public is, stays away from the construction site.
Okay.
Look out for them.
Mhm.
I'll call you, I'll have to go see it.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing it either because I'd like to understand the transition we were talking about in the workshop for the ADA compliance regarding that walkway.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd love to, whenever that happens, I'd love to go.
Be happy to take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ashley?
Good afternoon. Just a quick update on the James Avery facility. The project is going along smoothly, and we can get our clicker to work back there. If we can go to the next slide, please. It's moving along nicely, and it's on target for release to James Avery in August. And from there, they will complete their equipment installation and workstation installation. We can go to the next slide. They are working on, that is the concept plan. And the stone veneer is underway. As you can see by this photo here on the east elevation, they're working on the engraving and the enamel on the office buildings. They are also working on the next slide, please. Thank you. The steel trellis and the framing on the west side is also under construction, and the steel sub-framing is continuing in the office building, as you can see here in the pictures. And they also are working on the EMP weapons. Those are continuing to progress. And if all goes smoothly, they will be operational next summer, 2017.
And so I got a letter, and it was transmitted to the city in terms of their claim on their first installment, so you guys have already taken care of that, has that happened?
That's correct. That
Okay.
has been processed and will be mailed out next week,
Great.
or this
Okay.
week, actually.
Thanks. Okay. Any, are you, okay. Didn't
Okay.
see you coming.
Okay, on the sports complex, we are finalizing final design on the project itself. So you're looking at 11 outdoor baseball fields. We're looking at an indoor facility that will be built through the city's general fund. That would be the support building that we talked about. We have the lease negotiated and finalized with BTP Ventures, which is bringing the DBAT franchise to the project. The Callows really have been amazing benefactors to us on this project. They're working hard to make sure that the $9 million that we have contributed to the project will be the city's maximum out-of-pocket expense for the project. To that end, they've stepped up to try to provide some additional support to helping this facility get done and stay within that budget timeline. So some of the key things that they're looking to do is to provide all the off-site infrastructure for the property. So that's drainage, that is utility, and that is the roadway sections that'll come up off of Holdsworth Drive and then come over to the baseball side. There's no public road or public access that would come into the south side for soccer. In addition to that, we were preparing to have plans ready and to be out to bid here actually this month. The plans are being revised one last time because they are taking the rough grading and the extension of power interior to the project out of the bid. Instead, they're going to do those projects themselves under their dollars and then donate that as part of the improvements back to the city. And so, that's a net of adding some additional dollars on their side that they're picking up for that project. So what you'll actually see is probably towards the end of this month or early part of next month, some dirt start to move and you'll see some rough grading coming. There's actually some cutting on the north side off the hill to terrace out for the baseball. And then you'll see that fill being moved over to the soccer side to build that up and terrace that back out on that section as well. So again, we're finalizing the plans, and ironically the plans they're getting smaller because there's items that are being taken out and be constructed by private dollars, not by city dollars. The private dollars being the Calla Foundation's dollars that are there. So otherwise the project still remains on schedule, which is still to have it open at the latest by the middle of 2017. And when I say ready, that means ready for competition, so ready for exterior play. The interior support facility is still scheduled to, if it proceeds on, is going to be scheduled to be open really in that fall of 2017. So you'll have the baseball fields and the soccer fields open and operating and running, and then we'll have a little bit of additional time to finish out the interior athletic portion of that support building. So with that, any questions y'all have on that? Okay.
Thanks, Todd.
And one other major change, and KPUB's been a partner with this as well. The original plan was to bring power overhead along Town Creek Road, and the modification now is actually to take power underground. So there's still an above ground portion south as it comes to the soccer portion, but you'll see underground conduit being laid along Holdsworth Drive. It'll go down along Holdsworth now, and so the service now comes off the north side, off of Holdsworth instead of across the backside.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you. Item 4 is information discussion on HEB Tennis Center improvements.
I'm having trouble with the clicker. Being moved to the next slide, please. As you can see from this photo, we've been talking about this project. We've been programming it into your budget for some time now. And as you can see from this photo, there is some issues that do need to be addressed at the tennis center. We will be going to City Council tomorrow, and this is what I'm actually giving you an update today on. We have 14 total courts at the tennis center. The 6 that are actually in the middle are asphalt courts, and as you can see, they are cracked and are in need of repair. The remaining 8 courts do not need reconstruction, but they will need some resurfacing over the next few years, but these are the ones that need to be addressed immediately. Recently, staff met with Premier Courts out of San Antonio. They are a contractor that specializes in tennis court reconstruction and resurfacing. And we were given a couple of options actually to look at. Next slide, please. The first option consists of leveling up the existing courts, sealing the cracks, resurfacing the playing surface, and actually restriping the courts. Option 2 will do all of that in addition to installing a structural mat, new asphalt on the 2 worst courts. This option also has an extended life expectancy. The first one does not. The second one would be warranted. The first one does not. And if started, most of these options would actually be completed before the summer activities at the tennis center. They have a couple of major tournaments and summer programs that need to be functional and playing time by then. The third quote we actually received was for a construction of a concrete post-tension pad over the courts, and that's something that needs to be done but wouldn't be able to be done in time for the summer activities. So what we're actually recommending to City Council tomorrow is to go with option 2, and that is because it will be warranted. It'll have a longer life expectancy than the first option, and we'll be taking a contract to City Council tomorrow night. And this company that we are working with, Premier Courts, was acquired through the Texas Buy Board, so it does meet all requirements of the law. And if approved, the construction can begin in February and will be completed by the summer. And
What kind of a Band-Aid is this? This is a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year?
Option 1 won't be warranted, and that's the reason we didn't go with that. And he really expects it to start cracking this summer.
Understand.
So that one we kind of tossed out. Option 2 is partial construction or reconstruction of 2 of the courts, and then a fairly substantial reconstruction of 2 others. That work we expect to last 5 years plus. So we're thinking that there's going to be a pretty extended life expectancy on those center courts with option 2. The other 4 courts that aren't getting the immediate reconstruction are just going to be resurfaced, and contractor feels those are in good enough shape structurally that they'll hold up for that same amount of time.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Malcolm, this kind of goes on the theme that I've been concerned about on some other issues. So are we going to go ahead and begin some sort of a capital plan so that in 5 years these have to be torn out and reconstructed again then? Instead of starting over with another $100,000 patch on them? Or that's my concern, is how do we fix this for long term?
Well, city as a whole, one of the things that we're working on to discuss with council, and they don't even know this yet, but is really a strategy that we'll be rolling out to council to begin to incorporate into the fiscal year 17 budget and beyond. And that's going to begin to look out 10 years, just not on capital and building and land and major equipment, but also looking at major maintenance issues. And so, you know, to resurface the remaining 8 courts is about a $50,000 expense. And so that's really something that we need to be doing every 3 to 5 years, kind of as weathering and conditions warrant. So we're going to start programming these major maintenance expenditures into that plan, which ties back to the budget. So we don't lose sight of these, and we're programming these things in.
Okay. Thanks.
And as Mr. Pardon mentioned, we are working this into the plan, and we will come back when ready, TIC, to make the final application for the entire campus upgrades that we've already programmed into your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions?
Russell, you came to speak on this item. Would you like to add something?
Well, you probably already heard, if you were at council.
Russell, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and your address for the record.
Okay, Russell Kemp, 310 Bob White, Kerrville, Texas, 78028. About 100 yards from where you live.
Yeah.
Everything they've shown on here is correct. Option 1, we went with the KTA, and I'm trying to get the KTA to, and I should have that by tomorrow, look for option 2. But what we're looking for is a long-term solution. What we've done on these courts, which truly are in one of the most beautiful venues, if you've ever been to the courts, and been there during a day with the golf course to one side. One of the most beautiful venues that I go on. We travel, my son and I travel all the time to tennis courts all over. There's not a more beautiful venue, but our courts are probably the least playable courts that we play in, out there, and it's getting to truly a dangerous type thing. And this would be a fix for the short term. When I'm here today, and the KTA, which I represent, which is probably 120 now, it was 100 at council, it's 120 now, and probably bigger. KTA is that we want to look at a long-term solution for this, not just make it okay, but a venue that you'll want to go to. We have they alluded to two different tournaments. Those tournaments have, in the realm of this summer, having 750 people coming, and probably only 50 of those people are going to be from Kerrville. They'll be from all over the state, as far as Del Rio, Amarillo, and one is a state tournament, and one is a USTA tournament, and they will be huge. And when they're here, they do hotels, they do eat in our restaurants, and they do buy things, and they stay for multiple days as you go forward. What we want to look forward is a vision to where we keep the maintenance up, playability, livability of those courts, but let's get it where we can attract bigger tournaments. We're in the center of, a year ago, there was college teams playing on our courts because they're in the center. We are in the center. If we do something as simple as, and it's not really that big a deal, had covered courts, you can also get more tournaments here because you can finish out the venue as that goes forward. I'm here to just be in front of you and to know we're not going away. And KTA kind of got to a point where when you can't play on the courts, and we want to be here as a resource. We have, a lot of these people have played for many years. Tennis is one of the few things that a person from 4 to 90 can play, and we have people out there 80 plus playing every single day. And I looked at the numbers, and there are quite a few people. It's probably one of the most used year-round facilities in Kerrville. You don't even think about it, but there are, and this is not counting kids going to play from the high school and the junior high. We probably have 100 people there just playing every single day. There are leagues that I didn't even know about. I came on Wednesday night, and there's 20-something people playing. I come on a Sunday afternoon, and there's 20-something, and we don't even take those numbers. So, and the KTA wants to be a help. We don't want to be rude, but we want to be a help to you. So, any questions you have for us, we'll be happy to walk you through. We even have some thoughts on what we could do there in the future. But the center courts do need, after that 98,000 is done, in the next 2 or 3 years, those need to be post-membrane. So from then on, you don't have to do all this money. You just $50,000 here every once in a while, $50,000, and it's all set up. So thank you for your time. And you ever have any questions, me personally or my board and my people, just ask us. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 4B is the discussion of potential workforce housing project.
Yeah, I've kind of been talking about this as a community initiative for quite a while, and kind of recap, we talked about it at EIC, really kind of was the genesis for the concept of discussion of workforce housing. Represented that back to council. Council gave a green light to begin to investigate that. We looked at Peterson Farm Road as an existing city asset that had the potential maybe to be utilized, which then prompted us then to launch the study. So we've hired Freeze and Nichols, and they're actually running and trying to finish up an analysis that looks at the on-site and off-site water and wastewater infrastructure requirements to serve that property for build-out. So that report is being finalized, and we expect it anytime. Had a draft that was submitted, had a bunch of questions, so it's gone back for some additional fine-tuning and renovation. And so I hope to be able to have it to you actually this month, but we're not quite there yet. So my plan still is to get this to you in front of your next meeting in 3 weeks, so we can kind of walk through and look at it, and look at what the numbers look like.
Todd, is it possible if that report comes in early that you can get it to us prior to the meeting?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, we'll do that.
Because I'll
So,
have some questions, or I'd like to at least have some knowledge before we sit down.
you bet, you bet. So anyway, so then we kind of been talking about, okay, overall, what would the concept for a public-private partnership look like when it comes down to developing or trying to develop some sort of workforce housing project? And so, you know, and really, there's no given set way that communities are doing it. There's really kind of a variety of tools that we've identified that are brought in and can be discussed as part of a process, but it's really going to be dependent on a bunch of different factors in which way you go. When you structure an agreement with regard to leveraging the assets maybe of both partners to see what we do. Of course, it's going to depend on what the city's level of participation is. You know, the concept we had talked about on Peterson Farm was an equity type partnership, you know, where the city basically is providing land and maybe infrastructure as value towards the project, and as a result you become a partner at some level, which means you get revenue that would come back that helps to offset the cost of the maintaining and running that property, in addition to hopefully at some point additional resources to work with to look at other housing initiatives or assistance that are out there. And again, that project is a specific project concept based on a locational place where EIC actually controls property and has land that could potentially be made available. But you know, kind of taking a step back, that is one option that could be looked at. So again, so that equity partnerships are coming in an equity role. On the contribution side, again, you know, you can put land into an agreement. If you own it, you control it in some form or fashion. You know, there's the possibility to provide or to help offset the cost for off-site utility as well as on-site utility type of expenditures on a project. You know, and ultimately, you've also got the opportunity to do a Chapter 380 economic development agreement. And so, like we've done that for other projects in town, you know, some of other communities out there are actually, they don't own land, they don't necessarily have the dollars, you know, to extend utilities or don't extend, but they have entered into agreements with partnerships where they'll actually say, hey, they'll abate the property taxes, they'll abate the impact fees if they have them, which we don't, they'll abate, you know, inspection and development fees, you know, as a way to help offset the cost. And so, you know, you can utilize any or a number of all these different tools to kind of get there. I mean, it's pretty basic in terms of the types of things you'd put into it. And again, you know, as you look at it, you know, are we there? Do we control land? At the end of the day, you know, we may look at Peterson Farm Road and very likely may say there's really not a return back to the community to invest the dollars to make that project happen. So that doesn't mean that we give up on the concept. It just means, hey, are there other options that we need to look at? And particularly, do we begin working with other landowners that may be willing to come and partner up with us? If we go a route where we are in an equity partnership and we are an active participant in that agreement, then there would be a housing authority we'd need to create, because we're going to have an entity that will control and oversee the management of that asset. And so we would have to create an entity like that to do that. So, you know, it's still premature to look at whether we actually have an asset that we can develop that with right now. You know, when you look at the public-private partnership agreement itself, we've identified these 5 basic points that really are key things that we need to consider. Again, what is the type of development that we're talking about? And so We have a specific objective to get workforce housing, which is to support the growth and expansion of primary jobs. And so housing for our working folks that are coming into our community to address these expanded needs. The quality of development will be really key because, again, many times these are families, and we want to make sure that the right amenities and the right packages would be in there, whether it's a single-family project or a multifamily project. In addition to that, if you look at a multifamily type project, we want to make sure that that property is being maintained and managed to the right level. And so we're maintaining a quality working environment with there, which gets us in that property maintenance. The other issue is we're entering potentially under this construct into a partnership agreement. And we want to make sure that should the ownership transition to another party, whether it's a spinoff or a sell or something like that, that the city needs to be able to have the right to be able to weigh in and approve or disapprove of that, particularly if we're in a partnership, more of a true equity partnership role. We need the right to be able to discern whether that's an appropriate transition. And again, ultimately, long-term, the property needs to be maintained to the right levels. Again, just kind of recap, and I've said this probably too many times now, but how anything would be structured would kind of hang on the basic bones that I've tried to describe here. And it's going to be project specific and project centric to a potential location that we look at. So again, we're focusing right now on Peterson Farm. Like I said, ultimately you and council may look at that and say, no, that's a major investment. We're not willing to do that at this point. Then again, we need to talk about other types of projects, other locations, other housing types as well. Because I think EIC, when we first talked about this concept, was really intention of really doing more stick-built, single-family detached housing product. And what we've looked at here with this example with Peterson Farm has really been a multifamily project on a piece of property that could be developed for multi-uses all the way to include assembly and fabrication and industrial uses. So,
Todd, who's the actual legal owner of the property?
That's something that we're double checking, but EIC funds were used by that. So EIC? Yes, sir. Yeah, EIC.
So I guess the city council, are you saying then that the city council could not encumber this property in any way without the consent of EIC? Is that the implication of that?
I think that's a fair assessment of the implication, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if you, depending on the project and the potential user, if the city were to be kind of a partner in it, if you transfer it over to the city. I mean, EIC is a sub-entity of.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, right. So I just look at that.
Okay.
I know it probably leads to more questions and answers at this point.
That's a good first step. It helps.
Yeah.
Again, it makes me think and ask some more questions, but I think at this stage, I appreciate it.
Well, and a lot of communities have started to go this direction because of a lot of the typical funding programs, housing tax credit programs, the home programs, the federal HUD allocation process is becoming more and more constrained. It's becoming more and more difficult to qualify projects for these incentives in these programs. And there was more and more and more of a requirement to have cities actually step forward and provide dollars to these projects because these are competitive projects in a region. And so it's a point scoring system. And one of the most important elements of that points system was whether there was local commitment and local participation, and they equate that to a dollar value per unit based on your region. And so so a lot of cities had said, okay, we're not necessarily getting the products that we need. We're not necessarily qualifying projects within our city. For example, Kerrville only qualified for one more project within the city of Kerrville. And so, and that's kind of over towards River Hill is the last kind of census block that would really qualify for this program. So So there was some problems with regard to that. Now, one thing that's happened is HUD is starting to modify their programming, start to modify some of the requirements that are out there. So one of the first steps that we're seeing is that they're starting to reduce the amount of local contribution as part of the rules that are starting to be required. So the good news is there may be, some other traditional funding mechanisms that might come into play to help us with these projects. So again, that's just another potential assistance that may be out there on the developer side to help them offset the cost of these projects and bring investors into these programs. So, but there's other strings that are going to go with that, federal housing requirements that might not otherwise kick in if we do this with alternative means. So it's just something to weigh as another option.
Interesting.
Todd, will the study that you're going to receive bring in the burden of additional water usage to the city?
Yes, sir. It's going to look at what is necessary to provide the basic fire flow and fire pressure within the property, assuming it's built out. It's going to look at the additional load that is placed on the system for supply of water, as well as for the additional load that's going to come into the system on wastewater. So it'll look at peak demand, it'll look at average demand for both water and sewer, and then it'll look at fire flow and public safety requirements for the water side.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Todd. And I see item 5 is executive session, and we got the river trail posted. Is there something that we need to talk about there? Okay. I'd entertain a motion for us to go into executive session under the sections listed there on the agenda.
Make a motion to go to executive session based on sections 551.071 and 551.072. Do we need any of the other sections, Todd?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All those in favor of the uplifted hand. Motion's unanimous to go into executive session, so we will recess at 4:37. 3, we'll reconvene in open session. No votes were taken in executive session. I don't see anything else on the agenda, so no further business. We will adjourn at 4:53.